Hi Latifa, let's take a look at this set of essays you've sent us today. This is about the economic success of countries with long hours. Let's see what you wrote. Experts throughout both the developing and developed world have debated whether extended working hours have a greater impact on the economy of countries. Get rid of the. This essay will discuss both sides using examples from the UK government and Psychology Institute to demonstrate points and prove arguments. Okay, so here it's really important that we say a couple of things about to what extent do you agree or disagree essays, or any other time when they're asking you directly for your opinion, because that's what they're doing here with this expression. What you need to do if you're aiming for a band 7 is one of the things you need to do is you need to express your position clearly as early as your introduction, okay? And if you want to see why I say that, take a look at the band descriptors for task achievement at band 7. It says presents a clear response throughout the essay. In order for it to be clear throughout, you need to express your position as early as the introduction. So just to say that you're going to discuss both sides is really not enough. You need to tell us the answer to this question. To what extent do you agree or disagree? Because if you don't do that, then the way you've written this here, I basically have to read all the way through to the end of the essay to see where you stand on this issue, all right? And in that case, it's certainly not clear. So I really want you to pay attention to the command in all of these essays. If it says, do the benefits outweigh the disadvantages? If it says, to what extent do you agree or disagree? Do you agree or disagree? Give your view. Any of those really are telling you right there very clearly that you need to give your position on the answer in your introduction. Let's move on. There is ample evidence that advanced countries do not require their nation, well, it's not their nation, it's their citizens, to work many hours. The central reason behind this is twofold. Firstly, the economy of such nations is not solely dependent on the manual workforce, as they use the help of high-tech machines and professional work staff to increase productivity. Secondly, there should be a comma here. They are well aware that pushing employees, not employers, employees, double E, to work long hours will decrease quality of output. For example, recent empirical research by the UK government demonstrated that almost all companies working less than 48 hours a week have higher gross of products. I don't know about this expression, higher gross of products. It's awkward. As their work-life balance provides, you need an S here, them with significant time to rejuvenate so that they can surpass other countries in terms of economical success. I don't really care for this expression here. It gives them sufficient time to rejuvenate. You need to use an expression, not just one verb, in order to express kind of like what you're trying to say. To recharge. That would have been a good word, actually. Okay. But otherwise, you would have needed a different kind of expression. Therefore, it is conclusively clear that countries with adequate resources and technological advancements are able to flourish with normal working hours. Although there is a case for extended hour, that doesn't work. There's something wrong here. Basically, when you use this expression, which I know is something that you learned through the course, you need to use it correctly, though. Essentially, the first half of the sentence needs to be some sort of a rephrasing of this, or of the general idea. So what you're really trying to say is, although there is a case for, let's see, what you're trying to say basically, although there is a case for the economic success of companies with average working hours, okay, the impact of long hours cannot be overstated. All right, so the first half of the sentence with the although really needs to rephrase this. So this is largely because working long hours has negative effects. Why? Because this is your noun here, working. All right, it's a noun phrase, working long hours. It's one thing. For instance, an extensive study by Psychological Institute, it probably should be capitalized, showed that people working more than 48 hours a week suffer from a great many psychological problems such as depression, burnout, and stress-related diseases which will slow down performance in the long run. Thus, it is possible to stay beyond death. The coffee people will eventually leave those companies. Okay, full stop here. This is a little underdeveloped, Latifa, but there's another thing that I'm having an issue with that we'll talk about in a minute. So what you were telling us is that long hours have negative effects and people get burnout. Okay. From the arguments examples given, I firmly believe that although by working long hours companies might advance in the all right, you can't have although and but in the same sentence. So this should be, this is only in the short term. It is predicted that the length of working hours will decrease soon. Now, what I found in this essay is that both of your paragraphs were talking about the negatives of working longer hours. Okay? So, let's talk about this. Here, you were saying that, no, this is not the case, that these countries are more economically successful. In fact, it's just the opposite, that countries that work average amount of hours are economically successful. So, that's one thing. Here, you were again talking about the negatives of working longer hours. So, you didn't actually discuss both sides at all. I mean, you were basically in both paragraphs talking about what's wrong with working many hours. So this is inaccurate. You didn't discuss both sides of this issue. Okay? That's one thing. The second thing is that while this paragraph was really, it was relevant, this was not. Well, let me see. You said boosting up the economy, manufacturing cheap goods and services. Okay, my problem here is that you got off topic. You started talking about the people, the employees, but you were supposed to be talking about the economic success of the country. It started off fine, okay? Were you talking about the economy of some countries based on manufacturing of these products? But then it's like you went in a totally different direction and it stopped being on topic. So while this was fine, this was inappropriately developed as far as I'm concerned. What I was expecting to read based on your introduction is why countries that have longer working hours, why they are more economically successful. That would have tied in to what you wrote here in your introduction, and then it would have been this is the one side where I'm talking about, how, no, it's not true. It doesn't lead more to economic success. In fact, it's the people that don't work a lot of hours who are more economically successful. And then it would have made sense for you to then say, yeah, but look at this, all this evidence that shows us that, these countries are economically successful when they have tons of hours. But you didn't do that. So this paragraph for me was rather irrelevant. From the argument examples given, I firmly believe, all right, we already said that. And then that was fine. You just need to fix some of the grammar. Okay? So part of the essay was good. Part of the essay was strong. This paragraph for me really weakened it and created a problem. It created a rather weak link here in this essay. Okay? Now let's take a look at the shoes that all right, remember, it's important that you include the image. Just copy and paste it and put it into your answer. It's really helpful for me when I'm correcting because I usually refer to the graph at some point. So, given are two, they're not called column graphs, they're called bar charts, okay? And it's important that you're familiar with this vocabulary and that you use it appropriately. So, given are two bar charts comparing the number of brown and black leather shoe sales, get rid of the S here because it's acting like an adjective, in various different parts of the world in 2018. It was really just in Europe, if I remember correctly. It is apparent from the information supplied that each country had its own favorite type of shoes. While Poland enjoyed relatively high number of brown leather shoes overall, it seems Belgium was far less likely to produce. They didn't produce, they purchased, so careful with this. Brown leather shoes made both in Poland and Germany were double. All right, now again, we're not talking about making them, we're talking about buying them. How many shoes were purchased? So careful with this. Brown leather shoes purchased both in Poland and Germany were double those of black leather shoes. Okay, that's helpful, but we don't have any data. There's no numbers here, so we don't know how many black leather shoes were sold. With regard to black leather shoe sales, the highest number of black shoes was produced in Hungary, not produced, sold, with 145,000 followed closely by Italy, Belgium, and UK with this respectively. The number of black leather shoes is practically identical in Germany and Ireland, whereas France produced the fewest number of shoes not produced but sold, which was 2 times less than those mentioned countries. Then the aforementioned is the word you want. Okay, now what I see here is that you didn't really talk about brown leather shoes very much at all. So what did you talk to me about brown leather shoes? You told me, first of all, I thought this was your overview, okay? And remember that just because you talk about something in your overview, that doesn't mean you're done with it. Your overview should just be the main trend, the most obvious thing you see. But after that, you do need to go into the details here. And I don't really see any details about brown leather shoes whatsoever. So one of the things you need to know is that you needed to mention all the countries by name at least once. It felt like you did that, even though I'm not entirely sure. I'd have to, like I said, I have to look at the graph. Poland, Belgium, Germany, Italy, UK, Ireland, France. There's 2 more countries I thought, but I don't see them. Remember, you have to mention all of them because these are your categories. These are your key features, and you have to list them all, even just once by name. I thought that this was okay, but like I said, this is the only information you give us about brown leather shoes, and there's absolutely no data. So there's no data about half of the graph, okay? And that's a huge problem. The data you did give me was just these 4 pieces here. So essentially what that means is out of 18 pieces of data, I only have 4. Do I need all 18? No, of course not. You shouldn't give me all 18. You should give me some key ideas here, all right, some key information. There are a lot of ways to do this. I'm not going to say that one way is the right way, but there are some ways that kind of are more effective, if you ask me. Okay, so as we said, there's 18 pieces of information here. You cannot and should not mention them all, but you can do some grouping so that you give the general idea. Okay, so one of the things you can do, of course, is to use these ranges along the side. They can help you if you use them correctly. So let me tell you a little bit about how I would do this. The first thing I would do is I would have my introduction. Personally, I like my overview right after the introduction rather than at the end. It can go either way. You could do either one, but like I said, I always like it after the introduction. And then you can have 2 other paragraphs. I would split these into one paragraph about black leather and another paragraph about brown leather. I would start with black leather because black leather is actually your highest piece of information in the entire chart. So what I would do is I would use these numbers along the side. I would say something like, of the 9 countries, 3 countries had shoe sales between 100 and 150,000. More specifically, Hungary had 140,000 shoe sales, making it the country with the highest shoe sales of any type in any country. It was followed by Italy and Belgium with slightly less. Then I would say France was the only country that sold fewer than 50,000 black leather shoes at approximately 35,000. The remaining countries, UK, Germany, Ireland, Holland, and Poland, all sold between 50 and 100,000 black leather shoes. And then I go to my next paragraph. Let's see. In contrast to black leather shoes, 4 countries sold between 100 and 150,000 shoes of brown leather. Here, the country with the highest sales of brown leather shoes was Poland with 135,000 shoes sold, brown leather shoes sold. Hungary and Germany had an equal amount of brown leather shoes sold. There we go. It's a tongue twister. At around 125,000, and Italy had just above 100,000. Belgium was the country with the fewest brown leather shoes sold. It sold approximately 10,000 shoes. The remaining countries all sold between 50 and 100,000. And that's it, you're done. Now, you don't have to do it just like that. You could have varied it up a little bit, starting first with the shoes that were between 100 and 150. Then you could have gone to these countries here and then just say that this was the, and it's important to mention that this was the lowest figure in the chart for any value. Okay, so those are some suggestions on how you can do it. Like I said, it's not the only way to do it. There are, of course, other ways as well. But this is one way that I think lends itself to making it really a clear read. Okay, so let's see more work from you. Let's see you correct these, and I'll be waiting for your next set. So good luck.